Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. We're glad you're watching. Thank you so much for making time to join us. This is Triumphant Bible Media on Mtembei TV. And we're in for a treat today as we begin to look at authentic leadership, a subject that needs to be addressed exhaustively, even as we gear up for the general elections. As you go out there to elect your leaders, what will you be looking for? To help us in the discussion is our brother. How are you, sir?
I'm very well. Thank you so much for having me.
Karibu sana.
Asante sana.
Please tell us something about yourself.
Well, my name is Bonface Nyoike.
Yes.
I'm very passionate about authenticity, and I'm also married. I'm a father of 3, and above all, I am a student of leadership.
Thank you very much. Now we can rely on you to show us the way.
We will try.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
Now, since you are the student of leadership, let's begin at the beginning.
Yes.
What's leadership?
Leadership, in a very simple way, is influence with integrity. I know many times we've been told it's influence. You can influence people towards the wrong direction. And in that sense, we will not be saying you are leading. We'll be saying you are misleading people. So if your influence is not anchored on a foundation of integrity, then we cannot call you a genuine leader that is out to serve and add value to others. So it is influencing people with integrity for the betterment of their lives, not for the betterment of your life. So we have to add that last part, that when you're leading people and you're the only beneficiary of that process, then you're not an authentic leader. You're a manipulator, a deceiver, but a leader, no.
Oh, God.
Yes.
Now that has written off everything we are calling leadership today.
Well, there are still authentic leaders, but my biggest fear, especially for us in the Kenyan context, and now that we're in an election season, is that we confuse popularity with leadership. There are people who are very popular, they can move masses, they can give very promises that look very appealing, but when you look at it, it's a manipulative gimmick to get people to follow, but they are not leading people anywhere important.
Okay.
Yes.
Now, we are where we find ourselves.
Yes.
With the crop of leaders that we have.
Yes.
How do we handle that as people to salvage the situation, number one, and number two, to prevent it from recurring?
I think number one, we have got to begin by accepting that a lot of our current crop of leaders are not going to lead us where we need to go. And I think a lot of the times is that we fear actually saying, this leader is not worth following. I need to look for an alternative. Because it takes a very courageous heart for you to actually realize that leader is not leading me anywhere. I need to adjust who I'm leading so that I can go to where I need to go. So we need to begin from a place of honesty in assessing where we are as a country and as a people. And honestly see that we have a new forest, but it's the same monkeys. And if we keep allowing that scenario to continue, we have ourselves to blame. Now, I want to also say here that there are good leaders that offer themselves for leadership. But we are so used to the same old, let me use for a lack of a better word, the old monkeys, that when we have new leaders that can lead us somewhere, we don't follow them. We undermine them because they're not popular. We undermine them because they're not all over social media and in the big media houses. And we miss out on excellent leaders because we are looking for popularity instead of leadership. So that's where we must begin, by being honest. Yeah.
Now, this leadership that you're proposing, does it happen or is made to happen? Bring us up to speed in terms of the steps towards that leadership. Because if I get what you're saying, is that they are popular leaders who are a hindrance to authentic leaders. And then these authentic leaders don't seem to have the platform to express what they are offering because of the loudness of the misleaders.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely, yeah. Where I think we need to begin is, number one, we need to begin schooling ourselves. How does authentic leadership look like? I think we were just having a discussion with you a few minutes ago on some of the people who are very popular out here, and even how they use platforms that are sacred to push their agenda. And I'm not mentioning any names, but I'm saying that we need to come to a place where we assess leaders on values, not on popularity. And I think a lot of what has happened in our nation is that we evaluate leaders on the platform of popularity, on the platform of charisma and oratory skills. And what we fail to realize is you can be a very good orator, but a very bad leader. We need to put you on the radar of values, not how well you can speak to convince people, not how charismatic you are, but when the rubber meets the road, what does your track record say about your values, right? What does your track record say about the kind of disposition you have towards integrity, towards humility, towards servanthood? And if we cannot rate you well on values, then we need to rethink by the time we say we are going to vote for that particular kind of a person. So I'm saying that we need, and we also need to get away from this culture of being given tokens, tokenism, and then our vote or our allegiance to a leader is based on how much tokens they can give us. It is not the tokens they can give us, it's the vision they are taking us to and the values they have. Unfortunately, a lot of our leaders here don't have values, don't have vision, but they have a lot of tokens to give out. And we end up being manipulated every other time.
Yeah. Thank you for bringing that up.
Yes.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are talking with Bonface Nyoike, who is a student of leadership and the author of Authentic Leadership.
I have a book called Leading with Authenticity.
Leading with Authenticity.
Yes, that speaks into this matter.
We'll get into that later.
Yes.
Well, if you have a question to our guest, please put it in the comment section and we'll get back to you. And don't watch alone. Make sure that you invite somebody to follow into the discourse and be able to get what is happening. There is a lot at stake, even as we get set for the general elections. Don't vote for anything. Vote for what is able to deliver what is good for this country and good for its people. So in the course of our discussion, you'll be learning one or two things. So don't watch alone. Please invite 1, 2, 3, 4 people into the discourse and let us know from where you're watching and if you can get us loud and clear. Thank you very much. Now, tokenism.
Yes.
In my school of thought, that's buying leadership.
That's buying leadership.
Is leadership bought?
Leadership cannot be bought, but there are people who manipulate their way into leadership. And that's why tokenism now becomes a factor that somebody uses to influence people. And remember, going back to the definition we gave of leadership, is influence with integrity towards vision. Okay, so you can influence people without integrity and they will get to follow you. And a lot of leaders who use tokenism and use manipulation and giving people money, giving false promises, they are not leading from a place of integrity. Now, what I also must say is that we've created a culture where when a leader shows that they have integrity and they cannot give you tokens, you undermine their capacity to lead. And so what do? We end up voting for the same old people, and then we complain that nothing is changing. But remember that you cannot do the same things and expect a different result. Yeah.
Now, you're using the word old people.
Yes. Recycled leaders. Yes.
The president yesterday said, being aged is not a sickness.
Yes. And old, by the way, I must confirm.
So you need to come out to clarify whether this old is a campaign against the elderly.
No. By the way, when I say old, I'm not referring to age in terms of years. I'm referring to certain leaders that we keep putting back. They keep proving to us their inefficiencies and ineffectiveness, but we keep putting them back. And those can be people who are young in age or old in years, because they are leaders who are old in years. They are authentic, they are genuine. You can see vision, you can see values, but they are leaders who are young, but when you put them on the radar of values, again, you don't see that. So we are not referring to age vis-a-vis years. We are referring to the what would I call it? We keep repeating the same cycle of the same people. Yeah, and in that sense, again, we default to bad leadership.
No, traditionally, in a family setting or community setting, for that matter,
yes,
we used to have what is called age set.
Absolutely.
Whereby there was no vacuum of leadership in a particular setting. Each age set has its leadership, and that leadership was account to the next age set. And all that. So nobody just jumped from the bottom and became a leader without passing through these stages.
Yes.
We seem not to be having that in our pursuit for national leadership, where everybody wants to declare themselves the head and not the tail, without the classes in between. What's your take about that?
My take is this. Any leader of quality is a function of a process. Now, if you try to jump that process, you are literally trying to microwave your way into leadership. Now, guess what? Anytime you microwave yourself into leadership, you become a leader that has a position but cannot carry the weight of that position. Because remember, when you're given leadership, leadership is not privilege the way we understand it. Because a lot of people who run for office are driven by privilege. But after you're given that position, there will be a weight of responsibility to carry. And that weight will involve sacrifice, it will involve selflessness, and it will involve a desire to inconvenience yourself for the people who have elected you into office. Now, here is the challenge. If you got that position without process, then you will be trapped by pursuing the privileges of that position and not the pressures of that position. And by pressure, I mean the demands to deliver when push comes to shove. And I am saying that if you've not been subjected to a process, then you begin being driven by the wrong thing. You begin being driven by what you can get, what you can gain, and not how you can serve. And that's why what you said is very important. Where there is no process, the integrity and the capacity of that leader cannot handle the demands of that position. Yes.
Then from what you're saying, it seems that we have people who are caught up into the privilege of leadership.
Absolutely.
As the motivation to pursue leadership.
And those are the leaders we shouldn't elect.
Other than the sense of responsibility.
Absolutely.
Now, when it comes to the choice of a leader, you specified some qualities. I want you to help us break them down. The aspect of taking responsibility, selflessness, and all that. How does it come into play? And I'm a voter. How do I tell that this is there and this is not there?
Yes. I'll tell you what, and I want to begin with a very interesting quality that I will call honesty and integrity. Most of these people that are standing for office, if you study their lives, there has to be a pattern that has shown that this person is trustworthy. They can be trusted because the responsibilities they've held up to this point, they've showed that I'm not in it for me, I'm in it for others. So that's where we begin. We must look at your history. And that's why that word process you are talking about is a very important word, because process is what gives you track record. Track record is what shows whether you are a value-driven leader or just a privilege-seeking leader. Okay, so we begin there. We begin with honesty. And I'm going to say something very interesting here. Have you been mentioned in corruption situations, right? If you have, what credibility do we have to actually say, if we trust you with a bigger position, you'll be less corrupt, when the last position we gave you, we still cannot account for something? So we begin with honesty and integrity. Okay. The number two value that I think we need to look at is responsibility. And this is where we are saying, have you blamed anyone for the historical failures when you are in leadership? Again, a leader cannot be trusted to lead well when they dispose themselves to blaming when something doesn't work. There has to be that place where you take responsibility and say, you know what, I failed here. I am asking you to give me another chance, and these are the reasons why I am asking you to give me another chance. The third thing that I'm saying that we need to look at is selflessness. How much sacrifice has gone into what you are claiming as your need to be elected as a leader. And it reminds me of somebody like Nelson Mandela. Why was it so easy for the South African people to vote for Nelson Mandela? Because there was a track record of sacrifice and selflessness. Now, would I say that about a lot of people who are running for political office today? Wow, I am yet to be convinced, right? So those three things are key to begin seeing which leader is worth being in office. Humility and integrity, first place of call. Number two, responsibility. Do you take responsibility when things go wrong, or do you just want to hold the glory when things go right? Okay. And then number three, I've talked about selflessness. Are you there to add value to people and to even inconvenience yourself to be able to add value to those that you're leading? Those are three basic things that a lot of leaders don't pass the test on.
Okay.
Yeah.
So from what I'm hearing,
yes,
leadership is not a position.
Yes.
It is an acceptance of responsibility.
Absolutely.
Where you're willing to shoulder the weight that is placed on your shoulder.
Absolutely.
Now, as voters go out there to vote for various posts,
yes,
there are people who have offered themselves. Some are first timers.
Yes, yes,
okay.
yes.
Others have been around for a while. You're saying we study their history.
Yes.
If there is no history, can we take a risk?
Well, I don't think there is any situation. The only person who doesn't have a history is a baby. Yes. But any adult has a history. But I think what we do as voters is we are a bit lazy in finding out who is this individual? What have they done in the past? And it could be that there is no track record politically speaking, but there could be a track record in leadership in another space, right? For example, let's look at family as a basic unit of leadership, right? How have they been doing on the family front, right? Let's look at their immediate responsibilities before they volunteered for office. What were they doing? How are they leading? How are they showing vision and values? So I'm saying every leader has a history, right? It may not be directly political, but it's a leadership in a certain space. So on account of that experience, we can now say, are we ready to take a risk? Or is the risk that we are taking going to be one that will burn our fingers? Okay. Yes.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are having a discussion on authentic leadership, which I believe is interesting. Please, if you're finding us, let the world find us too by inviting them into this space for them to follow the discussion. I believe every Kenyan around the world is alert. Now that we are gearing up for the general elections, we need to know who is who, even if they are on the ballot. We must check on them and be sure whether we can be safe in their hands or not. Now, back to you.
Yes.
Bonface. Our country.
Yes.
You've been here for a while. You must be aware of where we have come from.
Yes.
Where we are.
Yeah.
Where do you see this country in terms of security of leadership in the future? Because from the look of things, we seem to have a deficit of leadership in the first place. And the young cropping up leaders are also not promising from my school of thought.
Yes.
How do we go about this? Because in my opinion, it's a time bomb that will erupt and the war onto us if we are caught in a bad place with bad leadership. Yes.
You know, I like the words you've used. We are having a serious leadership deficit. And it's not that we don't have position holders. I don't want people to confuse those two things. We have position holders, but we are lacking people who can deliver what those positions demand. Now, here is where it all begins. We have to begin at the very basic level. Our school system has got to begin inculcating leadership values and virtues as young as children are, so that they can begin to be taught when you get into a position of responsibility, this is how you carry yourself. Now, when you look at our school system, it's very academic and very theoretical. It doesn't prepare children for the weight of responsibility that leadership demands. So I think we need to begin to infuse a certain conversation, even in our academic system, that speaks to value-driven leadership. If we don't begin there, then again, the future is bleak. The future does not have promise for a system that is producing position holders that cannot lead with values. Yeah.
Now, I have an issue with the approach of turning our schools as our education system as a solution to our current crisis. The reason I have a problem with that is that we misuse the opportunity our children have to learn by heaping on them our own created problems in the hope that when they grow up, they will not make the same mistake we did. But in the process, they are not learning what they should learn. They are just like, for example, I went to, was it was in the University? And then there is a course being studied called criminology. So then there is a suggestion of another course called anti-corruption. And I come to think of it, I mean, why should we pay school fees to go to school to study anti-corruption? Is that how to deal with the education in solving issues? Or do we prepare these people, they grow up in values, and then they will know how to respond to issues? So I want you to balance that for me.
And why I mentioned institutions is because that's where a lot of formation of our lives begins, right? A lot of the information processes that goes into influencing how we think, how we view the world. A lot of our children spend most of their times, not even with their parents, they spend most of their times in school. So that's one portal that we can begin to maximize on, to begin, again, I'm not saying turning the academic curriculum into a leadership curriculum. I am saying injecting values, teaching values to people who are in a school space. The other space that we need to address that from, again, is places of social development. The family unit is a key unit. I give an example and I say, if you are driving in the Nairobi traffic today, your children are on the back, the policeman stops you, right? And of course, you are rushing somewhere, you are getting late, and then of course, you know when a policeman stops you what they want, right? And then they tell you, kama uko na haraka, then you know how we do it in Kenya. And then your child is at the back seat, they are watching everything that's going on. And then they see you get into your wallet, remove 1,000 shillings note, and give that policeman, and the policeman, of course, allows you to go on with your journey. What values have you modeled to that child? Will you blame that child tomorrow if they go to their school and they start cheating on their exams, right? So the family unit is a place of social development also. How do we begin inculcating those values at the family level? By the way, I think the bigger issue that I see in our country is not even a political failure. It's a failure of the family unit, where we don't model those values there, but we expect to have leadership that have values, but we have corrupt families.
Leadership that has values with corrupt families.
Yes, it can't work. It can't work. It can't work.
Crazy world. Felistas here says, Felistas Wakaria, I hope I pronounced that right. He says some youths have been brainwashed on lies, no moral values, and feel rejected and cheated by most leaders. How do you take that?
Well, I would respond in two ways. Nobody can brainwash you without you giving them that power to brainwash you. Your mind is your personal property, right? You subject it to whoever you desire to influence you. So what a lot of our youths have done is that they've allowed themselves to listen to deceptive voices. It is not that they are not truthful voices out here, but because the deceptive voices are loud and they have the money and they have the the tools to use for mass control. They can use the media and they can use all these platforms to push out their message. Then we cannot blame the media for schooling us. We decided to be schooled by media. So I to some extent, I wouldn't agree with that. I would actually say it is your personal responsibility to decide, what does leadership mean? Where will I learn leadership from? And when you choose the right voice, then now you can choose the right decisions going forward. But if you listen to the wrong voice, then you cannot really blame external factors.
Now, the choice for the voice,
yes,
requires some sense of right and wrong.
Absolutely.
Now, if I don't have sense of right and wrong, and you're giving me a responsibility of choosing the right voice, are you not putting me in an awkward situation?
And that's where I was saying family is a unit where we must educate the conscience, right? One of the biggest things that I think a parent has been given as a responsibility of leadership is to educate the conscience of your children, so that even by the time they go out there and meet another voice, they're able to know, oh yeah, this is a moral voice, this one is a deceptive voice. So again, back to what we are saying, we cannot have a functional society that is rooted on failed families. It begins there. And if we begin to educate conscience from that level, then even when you're in a place of challenge, of values, your conscience is alert, like an alarm clock. It comes on and it tells you, you know what? That's a wrong voice to listen to. Yeah.
Now, this, when wrong voices are given a platform,
absolutely,
or rather, if children have grown hearing the wrong voice, or calling the wrong voice the right voice, how will they come to a place of realizing that this is a wrong voice when that is all they have?
Now, the challenge is when you are too educated in the wrong voice, in your head it becomes the right voice because you don't know any other voice, right? And this is where I'm going to challenge those who are privileged to be in a position of influence and they have a conscience within them to begin to stop being shy about pushing out what is right. Okay. One of the things that somebody said, and I think this is so true, that the reason why evil prevails is because right men sit and watch and do nothing. What has empowered wrong voices to continue speaking in our nation, in our context, is because the people with the right voice are timid. Okay. A society fragments when the wrong people are bold and the right people are cowards. That society fragments and cannot be helped until the right people begin to find a boldness to push up the right voice out there and to talk about some of these things we are talking about. Values, principles, standards, truths. These are the things that will begin to change the narrative. But again, I pity our nation and where it is because the wrong voices are so loud, so persistent, that again, a lot of our masses are miseducated on what leadership should be and how it looks like. Yeah.
So where do we go from here?
Where do we go from here? I want to tell Kenyans there are good leaders that have stood out there for political office. And I know the mass media has already created a narrative out there that makes it look like we have no hope. We have to select the same leaders that have undermined the integrity of our constitution, that have undermined our livelihood as a nation. They are good leaders that have stood for office. They may not be popular, but why don't we rise up and give them a chance? Why don't we rise up and use our voting power and say, I will not put something on the ballot because it's popular or because it's my tribe. I will look at values. Remember the three things we talked about? I will ask myself, is this leader honest and do they have integrity? Number two, do they take responsibility for that position? Are they selfless? If I cannot say yes to those three questions, then I really need to think about who I'm voting. And if I vote in the wrong person, then I shouldn't complain when they do what they say they wouldn't do. Yeah.
Okay, asante sana, Bonface. Ladies and gentlemen, I trust you're following from wherever you are. Please let us know. If you have a question to our guest, put it in the comment section. We'll be able to get you to ask your question, or if you would want to join into the discourse, you request for the same. We'll give you the opportunity to come in and ask your question. We're glad that you are still here. Please, let's do the honorable thing, and that is get set to go out there and vote. Now, you said we go and vote for people that are credible.
Yes.
There are people who say there is nobody that is credible, therefore they are not going to vote.
Yeah.
What is your message to them?
What I'm going to say to such kind of a person is this: not voting is still voting. Because passivity is a decision to maintain the status quo, or to actually, worse than maintaining the status quo, allowing the wrong people to go into office. What I'm going to say is, you may not get a perfect leader. And by credibility, we are not talking about perfection. We are saying somebody who is making an effort to live up to certain values.
Yes, yes.
Now, there will always be those people. They may not be perfect. They may have one spot or another, but you can look at them and see they have the right drive, they have the right desire to lead, and they're being driven by the right motivation. Go out there and vote for that kind of a person. Don't sit at home and complain about the state of our nation when you have the power to fix it, and you still sit in your cocoon of passivity.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, there is something we left out.
Yes.
There's that gradual
Yes.
of ascending to leadership.
Yes.
Like we say, leadership does not happen. And it does not drop.
Yes.
It is a process that delivers you to leadership. We seem to have most of the people asking for leadership, demanding to be put in leadership, but they don't want to be questioned where they have been and what they have been doing. How do we treat such? And then if you want to inherit from your father, you will need to treat him well and give him due respect.
Yeah.
If this leadership is going to come from someone to be handed to you, and you have no regard for that particular person, are you still eligible for leadership?
Honor is a big indicator of readiness for leadership. There is nobody that dishonors leadership and rises and treats those that he will lead in an honorable way. Because if you cannot honor upwards, then how sure are we that you can honor downwards? And of course, I know there are all sorts of things that may be said about why somebody should dishonor upwards. I'll give a very practical example. If you had a parent today, right, by reason of that parent, you came into this world, and then somewhere they become insane in the journey of life. Now, does that give you authority to dishonor them on account of their insanity? Or is it actually an opportunity for you to prove you are being honorable by still treating them with honor, even when they're not in the right mental space as your parent, right? So what are we saying? If there is no culture of honor, then I think we really want to be very careful when we are saying that we can trust somebody with leadership, when again there is an honor challenge there. Okay. Now, having said that, I'm going to say this also, that when you are in a position of leadership, there will be very many opportunities for you to be dishonored or to be dishonorable, for lack of a better word. How you treat those opportunities will determine whether you're ready to be a leader or you're not ready to be a leader. Yeah.
Oh, there is something I've been complaining about. The kind of politics that we are playing of late.
Yes.
They make politics to be so dirty that nobody wants to associate with it if they want to be clean.
Yes.
Because no sooner does the person join politics than they turn into insulting machine, disregarding attitude, having no time for nobody because they want to be somebody in that space. Is that the whole essence of politics? You have to be dirty in order to play it?
I don't think so. You know, somebody has said this, and I think these are very wise words that every aspiring politician should listen to. The proof of a quality detergent is the ability to remove dirt without becoming dirt. Okay? So there has to be something about your integrity that is so astute that you can interact with a system that is corrupted, that is full of compromise, but still remain intact in your values. Again, that that proves the strength of your character as a leader. Because if you are a leader of character and you go into politics and then now you are changed by the politics, what does that say about your character? It was not authentic character to begin with. Because if it was authentic from the beginning, then even being in a hostile environment does not change it. It's your nature, it's who you are. Okay, so you cannot say you went into politics and then you found people are corrupt and then you became corrupt. No, it shows that a hostile environment only squeezes out what was already in you. It doesn't squeeze what was not in you. Right? So if there was integrity inside and you're put under pressure, what will come out is integrity. And if not, then again, what will come out will be commensurate with what was inside. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
And so, what is your counsel to young leaders who want to get into the position of leadership? What's the avenue? Because we seem to have a disregard for the existing leadership.
Yes.
And we want to replace it. And the way we're going about it seems to be destroying the same base that is holding leadership, and that is honor.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
You find somebody joined politics the other day and insulting somebody who has been in politics for ages. How does that now bring the two together? And then they say it is just politics.
Yeah. And again, that narrative of it is just politics is a very myopic way of viewing democracy, because we have to mature to a place where you don't have to insult somebody for you to have political mileage. That you can engage in an honorable way, you can engage in a way that shows that you're a person of dignity without necessarily having to insult each other. And I've been seeing the narrative among our politicians, of course, this one insulting the other one insulting the other, and it becomes a game of settling political scores and gaining mileage by virtue of how well you can insult the other person. This is what I want to say. A true statesman, a true person that is patriotic, does not need vulgarity to gain leadership mileage. You gain leadership mileage by serving, by adding value, and by going out there and solving problems. But these other gimmicks of insulting each other, and then 2 years after the electorate put you in office, you're saying hi to each other. I mean, which games is this we are playing? It's undermining the conscience of the nation.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, I also would want you to, as we begin to conclude, paint for us leadership as a right example. Because in my school of thought, to be a right influence, you must avail yourself to be a right example.
Absolutely.
It appears to me that the current crop of leadership don't care nothing about being right example.
Yes.
As long as they can make it to the headlines, it's okay. Whether it's for the right reason or for the wrong reason. How do we address that?
And again, it's the narrative we've chosen to believe as a nation. We even say bad publicity is better than no publicity. So for a lot of leaders that are trying to get into the political space, it is about, what do I do to go public? So the issue of whether it's right or wrong does not arise. We don't interrogate our conscience. And what I'm asking leaders to do is this. If what you are asking people to do, or the example you're setting, is not one you would want your own child to follow, then I think you are really unfit for office. Because a lot of, and I have had this being said, and I want to reiterate it here, that when a politician, mobilizes young people to go and throw stones, why is it that their children are not among those throwing stones? It is because they know that's not an example they want to model to their own children. So what we are saying is the only way to lead with integrity for the value addition of people is by example. And the example is what? Integrity, selflessness, servanthood, honesty. These are the things we are saying you must embody them, and not just talk about them and parrot them on a podium, but when push comes to shove and you're tested in life, you must be seen to stand for those values. Otherwise, if you don't stand for those values, then the only reason why you are in leadership is because you're seeking for valuables. And valuables you'll get, but at what cost?
Okay. Being in leadership because you're looking for valuables.
Yes.
Interesting way to look at it.
Yes.
Leading with authenticity.
Yes.
Bring us up to speed.
Leading with authenticity is exactly what we were talking about. Leading by example. Sometimes I tell people, it has been said, of course, that sometimes the quality of a leader is how many people are following. No. The quality of a leader is what will become of those who are following when they live up to every example that leader models. Okay? So if people are to take your life and not just listen to your words, but take your life and model everything that you are doing, would they become better or worse? If we cannot say they become better, then again, you're not an authentic leader. Being authentic is like genuine currency. Okay? You can have 1,000 shillings note that is counterfeit. You can have 100 shilling notes that is genuine. If you put the two, the one that is 1,000 shillings note would look more valuable, but it is actually the most useless. The one that is of a cheaper worth, for lack of a better word, but is genuine, may have a less value, but it is genuine. It can be exchanged for value. So what are we saying? Be a leader that can be exchanged for value. Don't just be an office holder. The issue is, what value are you bringing to the table? What problem are you solving? What example are you setting? What legacy will you leave? If those questions cannot be answered, there is no authenticity in your leadership.
Okay.
Yeah.
The book is available?
The book is available. In another 2 weeks, we are doing a print. So that will be available for people to consume. They can follow me on my social media for details.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Let's share those social media handles.
Bonface Nyoike Nganga on Facebook. You can follow me there. On Twitter, Bonnie_Nganga is my Twitter handle. You can also follow me, Bonface Nyoike Nganga, on LinkedIn. You'll find me on those platforms.
Okay.
Yeah.
Bonface Nyoike Nganga is the name to look for in all Facebook platforms.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Now, ladies and gentlemen, if you have not sent in your question, it will not be answered. But you can freely engage with our guest into further discussion on the subject, even as we get set for the elections. Now, there has been some questions about IBC and transferring of voters. There seems not to be clear, light from IBC. How do you encourage or rather advise the masses to respond in case they land into a crisis when they go to vote?
We want to really believe that our IBC is credible. They are going to live up to the Constitution. There's a chapter in there on integrity and ethics. So I want to believe that, again, because they are people of conscience, they will live up to the standards that the Constitution demands. And again, not allow this nation to go to the dogs by allowing certain immoral activities to happen in this electioneering period. So I think they have a high threshold of responsibility. Of course, people are looking up to them in a very big way. They have the destiny of this nation in their hands. And I think if they do the right thing, allow the process to be transparent and honest and full of integrity, they will have done us a service to this nation that will be a legacy for them.
Okay. Okay, then story of propaganda. We seem to have a lot of it flying around.
Yes.
Yesterday somebody, I'll come to that question later. Now, this propaganda, and then partly of this propaganda seems to be coming from church. So I want you to help us understand, even as we conclude our show.
Yes.
Church, authenticity, propaganda, politics. Help us balance these things.
Propaganda really rides on the raw interests of people. When people start being driven by interests and not values, then they become either peddlers of propaganda or consumers of that propaganda, and they begin to believe that propaganda. Unfortunately, I see a lot of that happening in our space, in the religious space, where a lot of people are buying into propaganda or information without interrogating the authenticity of that information, the credibility of that information. So this is what I'm going to tell Kenyans. you are smart, you have a mind, you have a conscience. Before you consume anything or believe anything, can you really interrogate it in light of values? Again, remember what we are saying is in light of values. And this is not the popular narrative out there, because the popular narrative out there is because people are already bent on certain political anglings, right? And they believe everything that camp says. So if you are Azimio camp, you believe everything Azimio says. If you are this other side, you believe everything they say. But what we are saying, why don't we bring ourselves to a place of objectivity and weigh everything in light of values and allow ourselves to be people who are driven by objectivity and not sensationalism. Yeah.
Okay. Politics of values. Where do we begin?
Let's begin by asking ourselves, will I vote based on values, or will I again vote based on propaganda? Unfortunately, our nation has a history where we vote a lot based on propaganda, based on deception, and based on a lot of what mass media churns out as a narrative out there. But I want to beg us as a nation, as a people, to interrogate our conscience. And we are not telling you here who to vote for. We are saying interrogate your conscience. You know the leader that has values. Vote for the leader that has values if you value your nation and if you value the posterity of this country. But again, we have a choice. If we don't vote for those leaders that have values, we will throw our nation to the dogs, and we will keep complaining about the same things we've talked about in this country: corruption, no jobs, no institutions that are working, because we put wrong people in office. Again, because we don't vote based on values.
Okay.
Yeah.
Politics of values seem to be not attractive. In politics, you need to command attention.
Yes.
You need to speak and the world listens.
Yes.
So how do we switch from popular politics to politics of values when politics of values are not selling?
I think part of what needs to happen is, of course, this is not going to be an instant change.
Yes.
I think that's one thing we have to accept, that the conscience of our nation is so muted or so muzzled that when somebody who has value stands for office, they're the last person we want to think about. But I think we need to begin in a small way. Those of us who have a conscience and we know the right thing, do the right thing. Yeah, I like something Mahatma Gandhi said, and I think it's a profound political ideology beyond being a life ideology. He said, be the change you want to see. Okay, even in society, being a man of value is not celebrated out there. Yeah, you know, if you go home and you become a good husband, for example, the news will not come and put your story on media, right? But if you go today and beat your wife and assault your children, then the media will come, because bad news sells, good news doesn't sell. Bad values seem to sell, good values don't seem to sell. But what we are saying, why don't we, in our own small space of influence, begin to change that narrative? If you have a conscience and you know the leader that has values, vote for that leader, as opposed to complaining about the darkness. Become the light that begins to confront the darkness.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, everybody. Instead of complaining about the darkness, become the light that answers to the same darkness. We really want to appreciate you, sir, for making time to join us in the discourse and helping us understand our commotion
Thank
at
you
this
very
point
much.
in time.
Thank you.
And we look out to having you again.
Thank you.
Joining us for another show.
Absolutely.
In your last word to our people, even as we sign out.
When we elect leaders that have values, we secure the future of our nation. When we elect leaders that are populists and leaders that we recycle just because they have financial muscles, then we will have ourselves to blame when our country continues deteriorating in quality and in values. Go and vote for somebody that has values.
Thank you. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that is it. Thank you so much for joining us into the discussion. I trust you have learned one or two things. Just make sure that you're part of the solution, not part of the problem. God bless you, everyone. My name is Reverend Ingozi. Let's do this again some other time.
All right.